NASA says its Voyager 1 probe, the most distant human-made object in the universe,
drifting silently through the darkness of interstellar space, NASA's ancient Voyager 1 spacecraft has detected something that shouldn't exist. Even more chilling, Voyager itself is changing, reconfiguring its systems in ways engineers never programmed. Did our oldest space traveler just discover alien technology, or has it become part of something bigger than humanity ever imagined? The lonely pioneer. In the vast emptiness of space, there's a tiny machine still talking to us after nearly 5 decades. Voyager 1, launched back in 1977 when bell-bottoms were cool and Star Wars first hit theaters, has become something truly remarkable. It's the first human-made object to reach interstellar space, the region between stars where our sun's influence fades away. This little spacecraft, no bigger than a small car, has traveled over 15 billion miles from Earth. That's so far that radio signals, moving at the speed of light, take about 22 hours to reach it. When engineers send a command, they wait almost 2 full days for a response. It's like having a conversation with someone who takes a day to answer every question. What makes this even more incredible is that Voyager 1 wasn't built to last this long. The engineers who designed it never imagined it would still be working today, drifting through the darkness beyond our solar system. Its nuclear power source, running on plutonium, was expected to keep it alive until maybe the early 2000s. Yet here we are, and Voyager is still whispering back to us across the stars. The spacecraft carries instruments that seem ancient by today's standards: magnetometers that measure magnetic fields, cosmic ray detectors, plasma wave sensors, all designed with 1970s technology. These old tools were meant to study the planets in our solar system. But they've become something else entirely, our first ears and eyes in interstellar space. Voyager also carries the famous Golden Record, a time capsule of Earth sounds, music and greetings in dozens of languages. It was meant as a message to any intelligence that might find it someday, thousands or millions of years from now. Little did we know that this record, this hello from humanity, might have already attracted attention much sooner than anyone expected. The first signal. The strange story begins with what scientists initially thought was just a blip in the data. In the endless stream of information coming back from Voyager, there was a tiny anomaly, a flicker that seemed like nothing. Space is full of dust and radiation, and occasional weird readings are normal. At first, the team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory dismissed it as background noise. Dr. Eliza Kern, one of the mission specialists who first noticed the anomaly, described it as like shouting into a canyon for decades, and finally, something shouts back. The reading was faint, just a slight reflection of light picked up by Voyager's sensors. In the beginning, it seemed so minor that it wasn't worth investigating further. But then something changed. This wasn't just a particle floating randomly through space. The object moved in a way that caught everyone's attention. It curved, it accelerated. It didn't tumble chaotically like a rock or piece of debris would. Instead, it glided smoothly, as if under control. When the plasma sensors on board Voyager registered a shift that seemed deliberate and focused, the team realized this wasn't background noise after all. Systems analyst Carlo Romero observed that the object's movement was unlike anything natural, describing it as the kind of deliberate motion one might expect from a drone rather than a rock, suggesting it had intention. That observation changed everything, because in the physics of space, things don't just move with purpose unless something is making them move that way. As Voyager transmitted this data back to Earth, the scientists found themselves facing a question they never expected to ask. What is it that moves like a machine but isn't one of ours? The empty void between stars suddenly seemed less empty, and that realization sent ripples through NASA that would soon grow into waves. Unnatural movement. When something unusual appears in space, scientists have a standard playbook. They check all the familiar possibilities. Is it a small moon, a distant comet, a new asteroid? One by one, the team worked through these options, and one by one, Each possibility fell away. This object wasn't a planet, far too small. Not a comet either. There was no tail, no ice trail, no heat signature. It didn't glow like a star. And gravitational lensing couldn't explain what they were seeing. Even space dust was ruled out, because dust doesn't suddenly change direction mid-flight. Dr. Lucas Hang at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory ran simulation after simulation, trying to match the object's behavior to known models. What makes space objects usually so predictable is physics. Everything moves according to known patterns and forces. But this object broke those rules. Its path bent in ways that didn't match any known orbital behavior, with no drift or decay that would be expected from natural objects. The team was forced to admit something difficult. What they were seeing wasn't just unknown, it was unnatural. The movement patterns suggested intelligence, or at least design, and that possibility was both exciting and deeply unsettling. If this wasn't a natural phenomenon, then what exactly had Voyager encountered in the darkness between the stars? As the analysis continued, the behavior became even stranger. The object seemed to be moving with purpose, on a specific trajectory that couldn't be explained by gravity, solar wind, or any of the other forces that typically influence objects in space. It was as if something or someone was guiding it, adjusting its course with precision. And that's when a second piece of evidence arrived that would transform this curious anomaly into something much more significant. Confirmation beyond doubt. Just as the scientists were trying to make sense of what Voyager 1 had detected, something unexpected happened. Voyager 2, the twin spacecraft following a completely different path, millions of miles away, detected something eerily similar. The same kind of magnetic fluctuation, the same kind of pulse, a matching signal signature that changed everything. This was the turning point in the investigation. Two different probes, two separate instruments, picking up nearly identical phenomena, ruled out the possibility of an internal error. It wasn't a software glitch or a sensor malfunction on Voyager 1. Whatever this was, it was real and happening in multiple directions of space. ESA analyst Merck Fontaine compared it to two lighthouses, both catching a flash of something passing between them. This cross-confirmation gave the anomaly weight and credibility. It wasn't noise, it wasn't Voyager acting up. It was a real, coordinated phenomenon happening out there in the space between stars. The team now had evidence that couldn't be dismissed. Something was moving through the region of space where both Voyagers were traveling, and it was doing so in a way that defied conventional explanation. With this confirmation, NASA quietly triggered what's known as a Level 3 alert, a designation used only for phenomena that don't fit within our current scientific understanding. The event was real, the math was consistent, the movement appeared deliberate, and nobody knew what to make of it. As more data streamed in from both spacecraft, the picture became clearer but also more mysterious. What had started as a single blip on Voyager 1's sensors was revealing itself to be something far more complex and organized than anyone had imagined. The formation. When the team pulled up the full telemetry logs and analyzed all the data, what they discovered sent chills down their spines. This wasn't just one or two anomalies moving through space. There were 305 objects, all moving together in formation. Each one glided past Voyager 1 in what appeared to be a choreographed arc, smooth, precise, and coordinated. These weren't debris fragments scattered randomly. There was no heat signature, no tails, no signs of decay that you'd expect from natural objects. And most striking of all, the readings showed rhythmic pulses echoing through the plasma waves, the kind of pattern you'd expect from something engineered, not formed by chance. The 305 objects weren't simply passing through randomly. They were moving together as a unit, maintaining relative positions to each other in a way that suggested organization and purpose. The formation itself defied natural explanation. In space, groups of objects tend to spread out over time due to slight differences in velocity, gravitational influences, and countless other factors. Yet these objects maintained their positions relative to each other with precision that seemed impossible without some form of control or guidance. Some scientists compared it to watching a flock of birds or a school of fish, except these were in the vacuum of space, where such coordinated movement shouldn't be possible without technology. Others likened it to watching a drone swarm, each unit aware of the others, all moving with a shared purpose. What made this discovery particularly unsettling was the scale. A single, anomalous object might be explained away as an instrument error or a rare natural phenomenon, but 305 objects, all moving with the same unnatural characteristics, all passing by Voyager at roughly the same time. That suggested something far more significant was happening in interstellar space, something beyond our current scientific understanding, the language of pulses. As scientists examined the data more closely, something truly strange appeared in the signals, patterns of repetition, not the kind you'd expect from stars or cosmic background radiation, but steady, measured, and clean sequences that suggested communication or control systems. The plasma wave pulses coming from these 305 objects had loops, sequences, and structures that hinted at something more complex than random cosmic noise. They didn't just pass by Voyager, they seemed to broadcast signals as if they were pinging, scanning, or talking to each other. Dr. Serena Patel from Caltech observed that the patterns felt less like nature and more like a language or a system. The idea was shocking, but increasingly difficult to ignore. These objects weren't moving in a chaotic swarm, but in an ordered, intentional formation, similar to how programmed drones might operate. Some experts went further in their assessment. ESA's Eric Lousy suggested this could be some sort of probe network, though he was quickly asked to stop speculating publicly. Even typically grounded scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson admitted there were patterns in that data that aren't random. To be absolutely certain they weren't seeing a glitch, the team activated one of Voyager's oldest subsystems, a backup telemetry channel that hadn't been used since the 1990s. It was meant for emergencies only, but it worked perfectly, confirming everything the primary systems had detected. The signals, the paths, the formations, all identical readings sent through a completely different channel. The implications were staggering. If these weren't errors in the machine, they were real phenomena unfolding in deep space, and the structured nature of the signals suggested not just movement, but information, as if these objects were communicating with each other or with something else entirely. Impossible propulsion. Voyager's readings didn't just capture the presence of the objects, they also revealed how these objects moved through space. And this is where things got even stranger. There were no engine flares, no ion trails, no signs of any kind of propulsion that we would recognize. Yet the Doppler shift measurements showed these objects accelerating rapidly, smoothly, and directionally. Some were moving faster than anything humans have ever launched. In fact, according to the data, some speeds even exceeded the calculated escape velocity of the entire Milky Way galaxy. These weren't objects drifting passively through space. They were powered somehow, moving with purpose and incredible speed. Dr. Caleb Ramirez from MIT noted that they're not floating through space, they're navigating it. But what worried him more was their path. These objects didn't come near Earth or show any interest in our solar system. They passed by at a calculated distance, as if they were deliberately avoiding us or simply had no reason to stop. The method of propulsion remained a complete mystery. Nothing in our current technology even comes close to explaining how these objects move. They appeared to be manipulating space itself, creating waves or ripples in the fabric of space-time that allowed them to glide forward without conventional thrust. Theoretical physicist Elena Reyes described it as not flight as we understand it, but more like gliding on something we don't yet know how to measure. It was as if these objects were using the medium of space itself to move, not with engines, not with combustion, but with some form of interaction with the vacuum that bent the rules of physics as we understand them. This behavior didn't fit into any known model of propulsion. It wasn't ion drives, it wasn't solar sails, It wasn't nuclear propulsion. Whatever was driving these objects remained completely unknown to human science, suggesting either natural laws we haven't yet discovered or technology far beyond our current capabilities. Earth hears whispers. While the team at NASA focused on Voyager's raw data, something odd started happening back on Earth. Across various corners of the globe, amateur radio operators, some just hobbyists with backyard setups, began reporting strange activity. They were picking up weak, irregular pulses, a kind of rhythmic static that didn't match any known terrestrial source. At first, it seemed unrelated, just coincidence perhaps. After all, radio interference happens all the time, but then the reports were time-stamped and compared. They aligned almost perfectly with the same hours that Voyager had recorded its most intense plasma anomalies. That's when people started paying serious attention. These weren't professional observatories or part of any official deep space listening effort. Most of these setups were built from spare parts, tuned to catch meteor scatter, amateur satellites, or solar flare chatter, and yet somehow they were detecting faint echoes of what Voyager had picked up billions of miles away. The signals weren't strong, but they had pattern and regularity, like ripples reflecting off invisible walls in the ionosphere. Some suspected these were echoes bouncing off high-altitude atmospheric layers. Others proposed that the signals were ricocheting off space debris or natural magnetic fields. But none of these explanations fully accounted for the timing or the content of what was being detected. This raised a troubling question. Was this bleed-through accidental, or was it purposeful? Was something out there testing Earth's listening capability, dropping breadcrumbs for us to follow? Or were the signals simply so powerful that they couldn't help but leak into our part of the electromagnetic spectrum? That uncertainty kicked off a quiet storm behind the scene. NASA began encrypting parts of its deep space telemetry feeds. Certain live transmissions were rerouted through secure relay stations. Agencies like ESA and CNSA reportedly locked down their deep listening protocol. There was an unspoken sense that if random enthusiasts could pick up these fragments, so could others with more resources and possibly more questionable intentions. Intelligence agencies took notice too. Discussions began about electromagnetic security. Could these signals be weaponized? Could they be intercepted, decoded, mimicked? As public chatter about the signals grew online, in Reddit threads, fringe forums, and speculative blogs, the focus shifted from what the signals were to who else might be hearing them. NASA, in response, went increasingly quiet. Public updates slowed while internal data reviews accelerated. Searching through history. With mounting evidence that something truly unusual was happening, a team was tasked with combing through decades of Voyager logs. They were searching for any hint, any pattern that might explain whether this phenomenon had happened before, perhaps unnoticed or misunderstood. Their search took them deep into the archives, into records untouched since the 1980s. If Voyager had encountered something like this in the past, there might be traces in the old data, clues that were overlooked because no one knew what to look for. The team didn't stop with just Voyager. They pulled data from every deep space mission on record. Pioneer 10, Pioneer 11, New Horizons, all were examined for similar patterns. But nothing matched. There were no echoes, no formations, no plasma loops in any previous mission data that resembled what Voyager was now detecting. That only deepened the mystery. If this kind of thing had happened before, we would have seen it in our records. These 305 objects, whatever they were, weren't part of a repeating cycle or a known phenomenon. They were either entirely new or only now becoming visible to our instruments. Some researchers proposed a chilling theory. Maybe these objects had always been out there, but cloaked or dormant. Maybe it was Voyager's signal itself, our golden record, or its slow mechanical ping that had somehow woken them, or called them, or simply alerted them to our presence. The absence of historical precedent made the current situation even more extraordinary. If these objects were truly unique, a one-time occurrence in our space exploration history, then Voyager had stumbled upon something genuinely unprecedented. The spacecraft launched to study Jupiter and Saturn had somehow, decades later, become witness to a phenomenon no human had ever observed before. Natural or engineered? With each new data packet from Voyager, the scientific community found itself torn between two uncomfortable explanations. On one hand, some believed these objects were probes, advanced engineered machines created by a non-human intelligence. On the other hand, there was the possibility that these were natural but exotic phenomena, particles or cosmic forces we haven't yet identified, operating in ways that defy the laws of physics as we currently understand them. Neither answer brought comfort. If they were probes, the questions came fast and hard. Who sent them? From where? How long have they been traveling? And why didn't they stop to investigate our solar system more closely? But if they were natural, if these were unknown forms of matter or energy, it would mean that the universe holds systems and rules we haven't even begun to observe. Objects that glide through space in organized patterns, sending pulses, creating magnetic shifts, and displaying behaviors we've never documented before. That kind of unknown might be even more unsettling than the alternative. One specific behavior pushed the debate into stranger territory. As these 305 objects passed Voyager, the local plasma field didn't just react, it changed. The density of charged particles fluctuated in clean, measured patterns. Magnetic fields warped around the objects. It wasn't chaotic or random. It looked designed, as if the objects were shaping the space around them. It appeared almost as if they were using the medium of space itself to move, not with engines or combustion, but with something else entirely, something we haven't discovered. Some form of interaction with the vacuum of space that bent the rules of motion as we understand them. The word paranormal started surfacing, not in the sense of ghosts or mythology, but in the original meaning, outside normal experience. Because this behavior didn't fit into our physics textbooks, and yet it was happening, being recorded and cross-verified by multiple instruments. This wasn't science fiction anymore, it was reality unfolding on our instruments. And somehow, it was Voyager, our oldest, slowest, simplest craft, that was right in the middle of it all, still working, still listening after all these decades in the cold emptiness of space. That fact alone made some scientists pause. Was Voyager's age, its analog design, its long dormant sensors, was all of that a flaw, or was it precisely the reason it could see what modern instruments missed? Perhaps it wasn't just coincidence that Voyager 1 captured this moment. Perhaps this old machine, built by human hands and now drifting alone in the dark, had become something more than an observer. It had become a witness, and maybe the universe chose it to see something we were never meant to find so soon. The machine awakens. Then, as if things weren't strange enough, Voyager itself started acting differently. Its guidance system, called the AACS, Attitude and Articulation Control System, began misbehaving. Not catastrophically, not like a crash, but it started rerouting data through old, long unused systems, almost like it was bypassing its own core software. At first, engineers thought it was a bug. After all, this is a 47-year-old spacecraft running on code older than most of the people now analyzing it. But the deeper they looked, the weirder it got. Voyager wasn't failing. It was reconfiguring itself, reactivating memory segments that hadn't been touched in decades, rerouting its telemetry in ways that were never programmed. Then came the kicker. This behavior began right after one of the magnetic pulses from the passing objects. Could that burst have flipped a bit of memory? Could it have triggered some dormant function buried deep inside Voyager's ancient architecture? No one knew for sure. What they did know was that this wasn't just data corruption. It was too systematic, too clean. Voyager was still listening, still obeying commands, but it was also doing something else, something new that hadn't been part of its original programming. To understand what was happening inside Voyager, engineers had to dig deep, literally opening dusty file cabinets at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. Most of Voyager's software was written in early assembly language. Some instructions only existed as notes in the margins of 1970s paper manual. Every test was painfully slow. It takes 22 hours to send a command to Voyager, another 22 to get a reply. That's 44 hours for every change, with no room for mistakes. And yet the engineers pressed on, rewriting patches, carefully rebooting subsystems, and listening for changes. They even activated routines last used during the Reagan administration, trying to reset the system without wiping its memory. What they found was both promising and terrifying. The machine was stable, the instruments were fine, but the new behaviors weren't going away. Whatever was causing them, it wasn't internal decay or software corruption. Voyager had touched something, or something had touched Voyager, and the spacecraft was different now. Part of something bigger. As scientists continued analyzing the strange signals pulsing through Voyager's instruments, a new and even stranger idea began to take shape. Among the plasma wave readings, certain patterns stood out, pulses that didn't behave like natural energy bursts. Instead, they looked structured, measured, and intentional. Then someone noticed something else. The waveforms weren't just structured, they resembled quantum oscillations, the kind used in modern quantum entanglement experiments. These are the same kinds of signals that researchers use on Earth to try and transmit information between particles separated by distance. It was subtle but undeniable, and it opened the door to a possibility no one had considered before. What if Voyager wasn't just recording random events in deep space? What if it had become part of something bigger? Maybe the 305 objects weren't just flying by. Maybe they were transmitting, broadcasting data through the interstellar medium using methods we don't yet understand. And by pure chance, or maybe by design, Voyager was in the right place at the right time, with the right kind of analog sensors to pick it up. It sounds like science fiction, but the deeper the analysis went, the more the math supported the possibility. The signals didn't behave like random noise. They repeated, they looped, they followed harmonic intervals that looked eerily close to what you'd expect from encoded information, something deliberately packed with meaning. This led to another realization. Voyager, being such an old machine, might actually be the perfect listener. Modern probes are too noisy, filled with high-frequency electronics, constantly transmitting and receiving chatter. But Voyager is slow, quiet, and analog. It has no clutter, no broadband digital static. It is, in a sense, the perfect ear in a cosmic concert hall. And being far outside the solar system, it's also free from the electromagnetic interference of Earth, free from the hiss of satellites, radar, and radio. It's just out there in the dark, listening, a perfect cosmic microphone. That changes the conversation, because now it's not just about what Voyager saw, it's about why. Were these signals meant for us? Did something know we were listening? Or is Voyager just an accidental listener, like a forgotten radio catching a transmission not meant for it? And if these 305 objects were sending a message, then what were they sending? And more hauntingly, who or what was supposed to receive it? The line between natural and artificial was starting to blur. Voyager may have crossed into something we haven't mapped, not just a part of space, but a network, a data layer, a communication channel that's been running for millennia, unnoticed until now. And the question no one could answer was perhaps the most chilling of all. What happens if Voyager replies? Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more quality content.